Hello everyone and welcome to the video. So I have never done a Q&A before. I'm really excited because today is going to be my first one. I reached out to you guys to ask some questions on Instagram and on YouTube, and here is what you asked. Basically, I'm just going to answer these questions and we can have a bit of a chat about the stuff that you guys want to talk about. So without further ado, let's jump straight into the Q&A. If you could live in another country besides Japan or Australia, which one would it be and why? Okay, I've never really properly considered living in another country apart from Japan or Australia. Obviously I was born in Australia. I moved to Japan about a year ago. I have considered living in the US, maybe somewhere like LA or New York, but I've never been to those places, so I wouldn't be able to give a proper answer as to whether I would probably want to live there. Like, I'd have to go there first. Otherwise, places I would consider would probably be the UK, particularly Scotland, maybe Canada as well. And then the other places I would consider, probably because of career possibilities or the landscape. Scotland looks really beautiful, and Canada seems like a good country, and yeah, I'm not really sure where else I would live. What's your biggest dream that you want to achieve? It's a really easy answer, and I'm sure many of you guys know it already, but my biggest dream is to become a published author. It's been something that I've wanted for as long as I can remember. There's nothing in life I want more than to publish a novel, and I'm working towards that every day on writing and trying to better myself and better my writing skills and work on my own creative writing and stuff. But yeah, without a doubt, being an author would be my biggest dream. The day that I see my book published and sitting on the shelves of a bookstore is probably going to be the happiest day of my life, quite honestly. Like, I'm probably going to spontaneously self-combust. Basically, I've never wanted anything more than I want to be an author. Number 3, what tips would you give to someone trying to write fiction? Do you have any tips for world-building, fluid progression of the story, using pronouns, etc.? Okay, I am not in any way a good source for advice on writing. As I said, I'm not a published author yet. I am not an authority on creative writing in any way. I've not published anything fiction, so I don't feel like I'm the best person to give advice in any way. That being said, I'd recommend you read a lot, read diverse books, read as much as you can. There's so many people who want to be writers but don't actually read a lot, and it's really important that you read like diverse media. If you're writing romance or if you're writing sci-fi, it's important to read outside of your genre to see how other authors do things. And for me personally, I think it's important to analyze different authors' work. So you can perform close readings, which means you just take like a page of someone's writing and analyze it, pick out the techniques, pull it apart, understand how they did things. And that can teach you a lot about how an author writes and what they do, and it helps you see what you like about someone's work and what you want to reflect within your own work. Other than that, I probably recommend getting people to read your writing. There's lots and lots of online communities where you can get other people to critique. You can enroll into a class if you want, if you have the money or finances to do that, and you can have critique partners. In terms of improving fiction writing, I'd probably just recommend read a lot, try to be very critical of your writing, and honestly, the biggest thing is that you have to write. The fastest way to get better at writing is to write as much as you can, as consistently as you can, and that's advice that I'm trying to put into practice. Okay, next one. Do you watch any anime series? If you do, what is your favorite? Okay, I do watch anime series. I haven't watched as much recently. In the past 12 months, my anime watching is actually reduced, which is funny because I moved to Japan. Recently, I've been watching Nichijou, which is like a slice of life, really short anime. It's really funny, it has a really dry sense of humor, and I really like it. My favorite anime is probably, well, definitely One Piece. It's the one I've watched the most of. I've actually read quite a bit of the manga for One Piece as well. However, I will say that I am terribly behind. I'm like a year behind, and the point where I stopped reading it, I stopped reading just because I got too busy. I will go back to it. But the point where I stopped reading, it was like building up to a really important part of this particular arc, and I really need to go back to it. Yeah, One Piece is my favorite. Other than that, I've watched like a lot of really like basic normal anime. Like a lot of people watch like Death Note and Code Geass and Attack on Titan and all that kind of stuff. The other few anime I really like are Himoto Umaru-chan. I know a lot of people dislike this anime, but I really love it. I find it like stupidly comforting and funny and silly, and I just really like it. and Flying Witch as well, which has a really like cute premise. It's about a witch in like, I think she's from Tokyo from memory. I haven't watched it for a while, but she goes to like a smaller town and there's a lot of magic and it's just a really nice anime. It's like really well drawn and I really like that one as well. How fluent are you in Japanese? Not fluent in any way, not fluent at all. I can order McDonald's and that's about it. Okay, so that's probably a little bit too harsh on myself, but I do know quite a few kanji. Obviously, I know all of hiragana and katakana, that's really, really basic, but if there's someone speaking to me in Japanese, I can pick out keywords and I can understand what they're saying. It's difficult for me to form sentences. Sentence structure is still something I really, really struggle with in Japanese, but I can say like basic sentences and I can order food and I can get around and I can read, as I say, quite a few kanji. I can read signs, I can do things. We recently bought tickets to a concert and we navigated this whole like screen buying tickets. It was completely in kanji, it was completely in Japanese. So our Japanese is like reasonably okay. Probably I'm somewhere around N5 level, I think. I think I'm a little bit past N5, but not anywhere near N4. How do you keep yourself motivated and any photography tips for beginners? Okay, photography tips. I am the worst person to ask for photography tips. I really don't know anything about photography. I mean, I know how to work a DSLR, I know how a DSLR works, I know how to use a 50mm lens, I know quite a bit about color grading. As far as actual photography, like techniques and stuff, I don't actually know a lot. Basically, use natural lighting, make sure everything is really, really well lit. The camera quality is a lot more important than how many filters you put on it. And if you buy a 50mm lens, everything automatically looks prettier. So that's basically all I have for photography tips. As far as like motivational tips go, I am a person who likes to work really hard on stuff. I always push myself to do like extracurricular stuff. Like if I'm doing uni, I'm also doing YouTube, I'm also doing like my own creative writing, I'm also doing freelance writing, I'm also doing like a heap of stuff. And I get burnt out a lot and I get exhausted a lot from doing too much and from not resting, and that's something I still need to work on. I still need to work on getting a balance and putting myself in a position where I can take days off and not feel guilty. I know it's a very common thing, especially for people like my age and millennials and people who are Gen Z. My motivation, everything I do to work hard, actually goes back to one of the first questions of this Q&A, which is, what is your biggest dream? Everything I do is for my dreams or for my goals. So I am putting myself through a creative writing master's so that I can help improve my writing, so that I can help myself become an author one day. I push myself to spend a lot of time writing my novel because I want it to be really, really good and I want it to get published one day. I do this YouTube channel because I love it. I really, really love it, and it's a medium I love, and so I do this as well, but everything I do helps me towards my goals, and I think what makes me motivated is that intense want to get there one day, that intense want to be a freelancer one day and to earn money off of my own creativity one day and to be able to support myself, because that is also another one of my really big dreams. So I think motivation isn't necessarily something that just comes from within. It doesn't just come out of thin air. It is a skill that you build, the ability to work and not procrastinate and to not be lazy and to force yourself to do stuff even when you don't want to be motivated. That's a skill that you develop over years, and I've been developing that for a really long time, probably ever since I was in year 12 and I decided I wanted to get a really good ATAR. Yeah, I think you need to find something to work towards. If you really, really want to achieve your goal, you'll find motivation from that. Next one, have you ever struggled being an outsider in a new culture, and do you think gender has impacted your experience, like e.g. safety? Yes, I've spoken about this briefly. I think, what video was it? It was in my How I've Changed Since Moving to Tokyo video. I spoke about my experiences with culture shock and how difficult culture shock was to deal with and how I got through it and all that stuff. So I have struggled a tiny bit with being an outsider in this culture. I think it helps if you spend a lot of time studying that culture, if you spend a lot of time trying to understand why the culture is the way it is and why it works that way. So yeah, there have been times where I've struggled, but really, really briefly. As I've said so many times, I've studied Japanese for a while. I did actually forget to mention with the Japanese question, I studied Japanese at university for 1 year. I studied it through primary school and high school, but the education wasn't very good. I didn't learn a lot, but I did study for 1 year. I've also studied Japanese culture, so that's been really, really helpful for understanding how this culture works and reducing culture shock. Do I think gender has impacted my experiences? Not as much, no. I get treated differently here to how I do in Australia, and there's some facets of gender that impact that. For example, I've gotten followed repeatedly by some people I've been spoken to. I've had negative experiences with creepy dudes, which is not something that happens in Australia, but is something that happens all over the world. So that's not a cultural thing. But because I've been an English teacher since working here, I worked with a lot of Westerners and Japanese people. I'm not working in a traditional company. I'm not working in a company where I'm expecting to get promotions or raises or anything like a proper company. I haven't had to deal with any gender issues or anything like that. So while I've had some uncomfortable experiences because of my gender here, I've never felt unsafe, I've never felt unhappy, I've never felt like the horrible outsider who gets treated poorly, so generally it hasn't been an issue for me. Next one, favorite books / favorite authors. I have far too many favorite books to list, or favorite authors to list them all and do it justice. I eventually want to do a big video on it and do it properly, just like I made my favorite movies video. Really quickly, some of my favorite authors are Virginia Woolf, Angela Carter, Mary Shelley, Sylvia Plath. My favorite book is probably The Magic Toy Shop by Angela Carter. Oh, I also love All the Light We Cannot See by Anthony Doerr. Otherwise, obviously my favorite book series is Harry Potter. I've not made any secret of that. Above all, my favorite books to read are Harry Potter, so those are some of my favorites. Advice on moving to Japan / favorite thing about living in Japan. This is another thing I would love to make a dedicated video about, so if you guys are interested, please let me know, because I have so much advice about living here and moving here and traveling here that I could not do it justice if I just spoke about it now. Favorite thing about living in Japan? I love everything about living here. It is going to be so sad to leave. But yeah, if I had to pick one general thing, I'd probably say the nature. The plants are so green here and they're so beautiful. To live in a country that's this warm at this time of the year, that also snows, that also has beautiful cherry blossom trees, that also has beautiful autumn leaves, it's just, you get the best of everything, and I love that so much. Do you mind telling us more about Tyler's work? Tyler is a full-time student and a freelancer. What's one thing, item / custom, etc. from Australia you wish was in Japan? My not needing a visa. Next one. Where do you see yourself as a writer? Do you plan on writing a book, making short stories, etc.? I see myself as an aspiring novelist. I struggle to call myself a writer still, even though I'm a paid non-fiction writer. I haven't been paid to publish anything fiction-wise, so I struggle to identify as a writer, which sounds really silly, but definitely aspiring. I want to write novels, basically. So I've written short stories, I've written narrative poetry, I've written regular poetry, but those are all very different. I think what I'm going to be most suited to is writing novels. I have been working on a novel for the longest time. Hopefully it's one day going to be done. Hopefully one day it's going to be good. Yeah, I have been working on something for a long time. I'm also working on a more visual project as well that's going to include illustration and is going to be more like a graphic novel / zine. So hopefully I'll be able to tell you guys more about that soon, but I am, in addition to working on my novel, also working on a more illustration based writerly bookish thing. Last question, what do you think makes a great and healthy relationship? In regards to a romantic relationship, probably love, honesty, complete trust and respect, genuine care for the other person's happiness. These are all really basic things that are probably not giving a very in-depth answer to this question. Basically just someone who can be a really good friend to you as well as a partner, someone who you can have fun with and laugh with, and honestly that's the most important thing. But yeah, I think that trust and knowing that there's another person who really, really cares about you and cares about your happiness and cares about your well-being is super duper important as well. As far as platonic relationships go, kindness, just being nice to each other, caring, respect, it's honestly the same stuff. Just be kind and care about people, and like have people in your life that you trust, basically. And yeah, that was my very first Q&A. I hope you guys enjoyed it and have an absolutely lovely day. Bye.